Today we're going to make bread pudding. So earlier today, I made a loaf of bread. That'll be another episode. Today, what we have to do first though is take the bread and cut it into about 1-inch squares and then toast it to get all of the moisture out so that when we add our egg and milk and cream mixture, it gets all absorbed in every nook and cranny of the bread. As you can tell, the bread is still hot. It just came out of the oven. So we're going to cut these into pieces, and then I'm going to put it on the cookie sheet, and we're going to bake it at 450 degrees for about 20 minutes just to get any lingering moisture out of it. Okay, now we're going to make our custard base for our bread pudding. I have 4 cups of whole milk, a cup of heavy cream, a cup of sugar. I have 4 eggs. We're going to stir that all together and break up those egg yolks. You don't want to, you just want to get the egg yolks broken up so they're not still whole. There we go. Then we have 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, a teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Stir all that together, and then we're going to add the melted butter. So I took a stick of butter in the microwave for 45 seconds till it's melted, and now it's sitting here cooling next to me. And by the time this is stirred, it should be cooled enough to add to it and not scramble those eggs that we just put in there. Alright, add our butter. And then the last thing we do is we have 8 cups of diced stale toasted bread over here that once I finish stirring, we are going to pour on top of the bread, and it's going to sit in this mixture for 5 minutes. And one of the important things when making bread pudding is to make sure every piece gets soaked. So that usually involves getting your hands dirty. So I push it all in to make sure every piece gets soaked in that nice creamy liquid. Then we're going to let it sit and soak in for 5 minutes, and then we will put it in our pans to bake. Okay, so our bread has been soaking for 5 minutes in that custard mixture. Now we're going to transfer it to 2 13 by 9 inch pans, which I've sprayed with cooking oil. So whatever cooking oil you like. And then you want to do about half and half. You see how I got more liquid in there? So I just come over here and pour some more in here. And this is going to puff up more as the custard bakes, so you don't want to fill it all the way. Just about halfway full. There we go. And we are going to bake this in a 350 degree oven for 55 minutes. To make the vanilla caramel sauce for the bread pudding, we're going to make 2 sauces for this bread pudding. One's a bourbon sauce and one's a vanilla caramel, because we're serving to both adults and not adults. So we're going to put 2 sticks of butter in the saucepan, turn it on medium heat. To that we will add a cup of heavy cream, a cup of sugar, white sugar, and a cup of brown sugar. And then we are going to bring that to a boil. Once it boils, we're going to remove it from the heat, and we're going to add the vanilla to it. If you add the vanilla and cook it in here, it loses some of that flavor, so we like to add it right at the end. So this should take about 15 minutes for it to start to boil. And then we'll remove it and add that vanilla. Okay, our vanilla caramel sauce is at a rolling boil, so we're going to turn that off. We're going to head over to the counter and stir in our vanilla. So we have 2 tablespoons of vanilla. And we are going to stir that in real quick. And then let it cool. And once it's cooled, we're going to pour it into our mason jar. Now this is used for bread pudding, but you can also use it for over ice cream or on an apple pie or pretty much anything. So we can keep this in the refrigerator for 2 months as long as you keep it refrigerated. Here is our vanilla caramel sauce. It's finally cooled down. So we are going to pour it very carefully into this jar. And there we are. Okay, now we're going to make our bourbon caramel sauce for bread pudding. We're going to start with a stick of butter, half a cup, and we are going to melt it over here. Then we're going to mix together our dry ingredients and then come back over to the stove. Alright, for our bourbon caramel sauce, I have a cup of sugar, white sugar. I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt, and then 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Then we're going to mix that together, and then we'll add it to our melted butter. Stirring together. There are chunks in there, but you don't have to worry about those because they'll melt when we add it to the butter. Alright, our butter is melted thoroughly, so now we're going to add that cinnamon, sugar, and salt mixture. There we go. And then to this, we are going to add 6 tablespoons of heavy cream. And 4 tablespoons of bourbon. We're going to cook this until it thickens up, about 5 to 6 minutes. And then we'll be done with bourbon sauce. Alright, now that we have the rolling boil on our caramel bourbon sauce, we're going to turn off the heat, give it one last stir, and then we're going to walk it over to the table so that it can cool. Now once it cools, we'll put it in a jar and get it ready packed up. You can also keep this. Just remember to label between the alcoholic and non-alcoholic sauces for your bread pudding. Alright, here we have our bourbon caramel sauce. We're just going to pour it very carefully into the jar for safekeeping. Like I said, just remember to label them so that you do not confuse and accidentally get your 3-year-old niece drunk at your next party. There we are. Our bread pudding is out of the oven and ready to go. We have our vanilla caramel sauce and our bourbon caramel sauce just ready to serve.